The stars of the central galaxy glowed above the shining towers of the Galactic Council. For thousands of years, this place had been the heart of order among the stars. The Council ruled hundreds of species and thousands of worlds. Every new civilization discovered by their explorers had joined them, often without a single shot fired. Some resisted for a short time, but in the end, every race bowed to the same power. It had always been that way. Inside the Hall of Unity, the Council gathered in session. Tall banners of different races hung from the walls, each one a symbol of loyalty. The air was calm, filled with the faint hum of translators converting a dozen languages into one shared speech. The leader of the Council, Grand Speaker Theros, stood at the center of the platform and looked over the gathered representatives. His skin was pale blue, his eyes bright with pride. For him, this meeting was routine, yet another declaration of a new species joining their empire. He raised his voice so that all could hear. A young species has been found on the edge of the Orion Arm. They call their world Earth. Their technology is basic, their governments are divided, and their weapons are crude. Still, they have potential. It is time they join the Council. The hall filled with polite murmurs of agreement. Some species nodded, others barely cared. Humanity was just another primitive race to them. The Council's scientists had already studied Earth from afar. They had learned everything: the wars, the greed, the pollution, the struggle for power. The Council had decided that humans would be easy to control. They would be told that joining was for their protection, and as usual, they would accept it. Ambassador Rethan, who had studied human behavior for several cycles, stood and addressed the chamber. He was tall and covered in silver scales that reflected the light. "These humans are loud and emotional," he said, "but they crave order. Offer them peace and trade, and they will come willingly. Their leaders will do anything to be part of something greater." Theros smiled. "Then let us extend our hand of peace. We shall send a formal message to Earth. They will surrender their weapons, allow us to establish observation bases, and join as a protectorate world." Rethan nodded and prepared the transmission. The Council's message was written in calm diplomatic language, but its meaning was clear: submit or be isolated. It offered benefits such as protection, medicine, and interstellar travel, but it also required full obedience to the laws of the Council. When the message was sent, the delegates left the hall certain of the result. Every other world had accepted within days. Some even celebrated the arrival of the Council. They expected the same from humanity. Days passed, then weeks. No answer came. Theros grew impatient. "Perhaps their translators failed," he said. "Send another message." Rethan sent a second transmission. It carried the same command, but in simpler language. He waited at the communication hub, confident that Earth would reply soon. On the third day, the signal from Earth finally arrived. The entire hall gathered to witness it. The message was short, only 3 words long, written in perfect Galactic common. It read, "We stand free." Silence fell across the chamber. For a moment, no one spoke. Theros frowned, thinking it was a mistake. "That cannot be correct," he said. "Surely they mean something else." Rethan checked the code again. "It is correct, Grand Speaker." The humans refused to surrender. A wave of disbelief passed through the delegates. The smaller species looked afraid while the larger ones laughed. "They are foolish," one said. "A child's defiance before punishment." Another delegate added, "No world has ever rejected the Council and survived. They will learn soon enough." Theros raised his hand, silencing the chamber. "Then we shall teach them respect. Prepare a fleet. Show them the power of the Council." Rethan hesitated. "Grand Speaker, perhaps we should send a small group first, a show of strength. They may surrender without bloodshed." Theros agreed, though pride filled his voice. "Very well. Send the first expeditionary fleet. Bring them peace through discipline." Across the galaxy, on the distant blue planet called Earth, the same message played in every major city. The words of the Galactic Council echoed across television screens and communication networks. The message promised peace, unity, and prosperity, but also demanded control. Every nation received it at once, and for the first time in centuries, all of humanity shared a single moment of decision. In the United Earth Assembly, the leaders of the world gathered in a room deep beneath the Pacific Federation complex. The walls were lined with screens showing data from orbiting satellites. At the center of the room stood Commander Rana, head of Earth Defense Command. She was calm but firm, her eyes fixed on the image of the alien transmission. "They think we will bow. she said quietly. "They have no idea who we are." An older scientist, Dr. Miles, spoke from the corner. "Their ships are large. Their weapons use energy we have never seen before. If they attack, we cannot win easily." Rana turned to him. "Maybe not easily, but we will not surrender. Every nation on Earth has agreed. We stand together," it was true. Old rivalries were set aside. The nations that once fought for land and power now worked as one. Human engineers had built new ships in orbit, fast, strong, and adaptable. The fleet was small but united by purpose. They called it the Earth Defense Fleet. Its motto was simple: stand free or fall together. In orbit above Earth, the first human fleet waited. The ships were not as large as the Council's vessels, but they were built with a mix of creativity and desperation. Each ship carried technology created by combining old human knowledge with new discoveries from recovered alien signals. Humanity had adapted faster than anyone expected. Meanwhile, far away, the first expeditionary fleet of the Galactic Council began its journey toward Earth. It consisted of 20 large cruisers and 10 support ships, all equipped with advanced plasma cannons and energy shields. The fleet commander, Admiral Verak, had crushed 3 rebellions in his career. He saw this mission as an easy victory. He sat in his command chair and smiled. "By this time next cycle, Earth will be another loyal world," he said to his officers. His second-in-command, Captain Orla, looked uncertain. "Reports say humans are unpredictable, Admiral. Perhaps we should study them more closely before we attack." Verak laughed. "They are primitives. They send messages instead of armies. What can they possibly do against us?" The fleet traveled through hyperspace for several days before emerging near the edge of the Sol system. The sun glowed like a distant fireball, and the blue planet Earth shimmered far below. The Council ships approached with confidence. Verak ordered his fleet to establish orbit and open communication. "This is Admiral Verak of the Galactic Council." His voice boomed across the communication bands. "Humans of Earth, you stand before the authority of the Council. Surrender your weapons and submit to our guidance. Refuse and we will be forced to act." For a moment there was no reply. The Council ships hovered, expecting fear or confusion. Instead, a human voice answered in perfect galactic common. "This is Commander Rana of the Earth Defense Fleet. Your message is received. Leave our home and no harm will come to you." Verak chuckled. "Brave words for a primitive. I give you one final chance to surrender peacefully." Rana's voice came again, calm and steady. "You misunderstand. This is not defiance. This is our choice. We stand free." The communication ended. No further message came. Verak sighed and gave the order to advance. "Charge weapons. Target their orbital platforms. We will end this quickly." As the Council ships moved closer, the darkness of space came alive. Human ships rose from behind the moon and from orbital stations hidden in shadow. There were more than Verak expected. Sleek metal shapes with blue lights along their hulls. They moved in coordinated patterns, forming a defensive line between the planet and the invading fleet. Verak frowned.
"How did they build so many so fast?"
he muttered. His sensors counted more than 50 human ships. Smaller than Council cruisers, but fast. Too fast. The first shot came from a Council cruiser. A beam of plasma cut through the void, striking one of the human ships. The human ship spun, its shields flaring, but it did not break. Instead, it fired back. The energy burst struck the Council cruiser's flank, breaching its shield. Verak's crew shouted in shock. "Their weapons pierced our defense." On Earth, billions watched the battle unfold through live feeds. The sky above some cities glowed faintly as streaks of light crossed the heavens. Humanity held its breath, united not by fear but by pride. In the Council hall far away, Rethan watched the battle reports with disbelief. "They are fighting back," he whispered. "They should not be able to fight back." Tharos clenched his hands. "Impossible. No primitive world has ever resisted the Council. This is an illusion." But it was not an illusion. Humanity had done what no other species dared to do. They had refused to kneel. They had faced the galaxy's oldest empire and spoken with one voice. As the battle near Earth raged on, one message from Commander Rana reached every corner of human space. "We fight not for conquest. We fight to remain free. If we fall, then let it be standing." That message spread through every communication channel carried by traders, explorers, and colonists. Even before the battle ended, it had become a legend. And far across the stars, for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council began to feel something they had long forgotten: fear. The Second Fleet's defeat at Jupiter sent a shockwave through the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council's power had been broken. Worlds that once trembled at the Council's name began to whisper about freedom. On distant colonies, banners of rebellion were painted in secret. Miners on the outer moon spoke of the humans with admiration, calling them the people of fire. The legend of the Earth fleet spread faster than light. In the grand chamber of the Council, fear and pride clashed. Grand Speaker Thero stood at the center, surrounded by his advisors. The air was tense, filled with the sound of angry voices. Many demanded revenge. Others warned that continued war would destroy the Council itself. The balance of the galaxy was breaking. "This cannot continue," Thero said with a cold voice. "We are the law. We cannot appear weak. If the humans are not destroyed, our empire will fall apart." Ambassador Rethan stood before him, calm but firm. "Grand Speaker, if we continue this war, more worlds will rise against us. Already we have lost support from 3 colonies. The humans fight with belief. They are not seeking territory. They are fighting for something stronger than power." Theros glared at him. "And what is that, Ambassador?" "Freedom," Rethan said simply. "They believe in it so deeply that they are willing to die for it. We cannot crush that with fear." Theros turned away, his robe brushing across the marble floor. "Then we will use something greater than fear. Prepare the High Fleet, every ship, every weapon, every commander. We will bring the storm to their world. Earth will burn and their spirit with it." The room fell silent. The High Fleet had not been called upon in over 500 years. It was the full force of the Council's military, a power so large it had conquered half the known galaxy in the past. Even Rethan was speechless. Theros had chosen total war. Across the stars the order spread. From every system ships gathered. Massive carriers the size of cities. Battle cruisers with weapons strong enough to shatter moons. It was said that when the High Fleet moved, the stars themselves dimmed in their shadow. The galaxy held its breath. On Earth, the news of the Council's new army reached the United Earth Assembly. Commander Rana stood before the world's leaders in the Great Hall beneath the Pacific Federation complex. The faces around her were tired but determined. The last battle had cost many lives, yet no one regretted their choice. "They are coming again," Rana said, her voice steady, "this time with everything they have. Their fleet is larger than anything we have faced before. We cannot outnumber them, but we can outthink them." An older leader, President Aaron, asked, "Can we truly hold against such force?" Rana nodded slowly. "We must. We have no other choice. We will not abandon our world. We will not kneel." Dr. Miles, standing beside her, displayed a holographic map of the solar system. "We have studied their tactics. They rely on direct attacks. If we spread our fleet across multiple layers, we can use gravity wells and asteroid fields to disrupt their formations." Rana smiled faintly. "Then we make them fight on our terms. Prepare every ship. Call every pilot. The defense of Earth begins now." For weeks, humanity worked without rest. Spaceports on Mars and the Moon overflowed with supplies. New ships rolled out of orbiting shipyards. Families said goodbye to their loved ones, knowing many would not return. The sky above Earth glowed with trails of light as the fleet moved into position. Captain Mira and her ship, the Aurora, were stationed near the edge of the solar system. Her crew worked silently, checking weapons and engines. Each person knew what was coming. The Aurora had become a symbol of hope after the victory at Jupiter. Now it would face the greatest battle of all. Mira stood on the bridge, looking out at the distant stars. Her second officer, Thomas, approached quietly. "Do you think we can win this one, Captain?" She turned to him with calm eyes. "Winning does not always mean surviving, Thomas. It means standing when the universe expects you to fall. That is what we will do." Far from Earth, at the edge of Council space, the High Fleet gathered. It stretched across the void, row after row of shining metal. Admiral Kor, commander of the fleet, stood on the bridge of the flagship Vigilant Flame. His voice carried across the communication network. "The humans have shamed us twice," he said. "They have mocked the authority of the Council. No more. Today we erase their defiance. Today we end their story." The fleet moved as one, jumping through hyperspace. It was said that the light of their engines was visible even from distant systems. When they emerged near the Sol system, sensors on every planet detected them at once. Humanity had never seen such power. the sky filled with signals, alarms, and orders. Commander Rana stood in the command room, surrounded by screens showing the incoming armada. "They are here," she said softly. "All ships, defensive positions. We fight until the last." The Earth Defense Fleet assembled near Earth and the Moon. Thousands of ships took formation. Fighters launched from carriers. Space stations armed their weapons. It was a sight that filled every human heart with both fear and pride. No longer was humanity a scattered race. They were one. As the High Fleet advanced, Admiral Kor sent a transmission. "This is your final warning. Surrender your ships and your planet. Refuse and you will be destroyed," Commander Rana replied with calm strength. "We have heard those words before. We stand free. You will not take our home." The line went silent. Then the stars came alive with war. The first wave of Council ships fired their plasma cannons. Streams of burning light cut through the darkness. The human ships responded with precise strikes. Explosions filled space, lighting up the void between the planets. The battle had begun. On the Aurora, Captain Mira gave orders without hesitation. "Target their forward shields. Keep moving. Do not let them lock on. Focus fire on their command vessels." The Aurora moved like lightning, weaving between enemy ships. Its guns fired in perfect rhythm. Each shot found its mark. Council ships fell one after another. But for every ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The humans were outnumbered, but they refused to yield. Fighter pilots dove between enemy lines, releasing missiles that broke through heavy shields. The vacuum of space became a storm of debris. Wreckage drifted like burning stars. The voices on the communication lines mixed with static and courage. "Hold the line," someone shouted. "For Earth." Admiral Kor watched from his flagship, his anger growing. "How are they holding?" "Their ships are too small. Their weapons too weak," his advisor spoke carefully. "They are using gravity slings and debris fields to shield their movements. They fight with chaos. Our systems cannot predict them." Kor gritted his teeth. "Then destroy the planet itself. Burn it until nothing remains." The order spread through the fleet. Massive cannons on the largest ships began to charge. The energy built until the weapons glowed like small suns. But before they could fire, the human fleet struck back. The Aurora and 3 other ships dove straight into the line of battleships. They fired at the weapon cores with precision. The resulting explosion shook the entire system. Inside the council chambers, news arrived in real time. Theros stared at the display, unable to speak. The High Fleet, the pride of the council, was struggling. Entire wings had been destroyed. Human tactics, unpredictable and fearless, had turned the tide again. On Earth, people watched the sky as flashes of light crossed the heavens. The ground trembled from the energy waves. Families held each other close. Children asked if the stars were falling. Their parents told them not to fear. "That is our fleet," they said. "Those are our protectors." Back in the battle, Captain Mira's ship took heavy fire. The bridge shook, alarms blaring. Thomas shouted, "Shields at 30%. We cannot take much more." Mira looked at the burning enemy fleet ahead. "Then we make it count. All power to the main cannons. Fire on my mark." The ship's lights dimmed as power was redirected. Mira raised her hand. "Now." The Aurora fired a blast that tore through the flagship of the enemy's command group. The explosion was massive, lighting up the darkness like a new sun. The Council fleet faltered. Admiral Kor's voice was filled with disbelief. "Pull back, regroup now." The High Fleet began to retreat. Ships limped into hyperspace, damaged and burning. The humans did not chase them. They held position, watching the enemy vanish into the void. The battle was over. Silence fell across the system. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then cheers erupted across every channel. The people of Earth cried and laughed. Soldiers hugged each other aboard their ships. Humanity had stood against the might of the galaxy and survived again. Commander Rana's voice echoed through every speaker. "The fire over Earth has burned away the chains of fear. We have shown the galaxy that freedom is stronger than power. Today we stand not just for ourselves, but for every world that dreams of being free." In distant systems, slaves heard her words and looked to the stars with new hope. Colonies under Council control began to rise in rebellion. The spark that started on Earth had become a flame spreading across the galaxy. Back in the Council Hall, Theros sat in silence. The once proud ruler now looked broken. "How can this be?" he whispered. "How can one world defeat the Council?" Rethan answered quietly. Because they fight for something we forgot long ago. They fight for the right to choose their own destiny. Theros closed his eyes. Then we are finished. But Rathan shook his head. No, Grand Speaker. The battle over Earth had changed everything. What the Galactic Council thought would be a small display of power turned into a disaster. News of the defeat spread through the stars faster than light. Whole systems whispered about it in fear and awe. The Council, which had not lost a battle in centuries, now faced the impossible truth. The humans had fought them and won. Inside the Grand Council Hall, chaos filled the air. Delegates of many races shouted over one another. Some demanded a new invasion. Others begged for peace before humanity could strike again. The banners of the council hung high, but the pride they once carried now felt empty. Grand Speaker Theros sat at the center of the chaos, his face pale with anger. This cannot continue, he said. One world cannot defy us. We are the guardians of the galaxy. We must remind them who rules these stars. Ambassador Rathan stood before him. With respect, Grand Speaker, this is no ordinary world. Humanity is unlike any race we have known. They do not surrender, and they do not fear death. They fight for freedom. That is their strength. Theros slammed his hand on the table. Then we will take that strength away. Prepare the second fleet, 10 times larger. We will burn their ships from orbit and show every world what happens to those who resist. Rathan lowered his gaze. If we do this, Grand Speaker, others may follow them. Already I have heard of colonies refusing to pay tribute. They are watching the humans. If they believe we can be defeated, rebellion will spread. Theros' voice hardened. Then we crush them all. The humans have brought chaos, and we will answer with order. Across the galaxy, preparations began. Massive shipyards came alive as thousands of workers built new cruisers and carriers. The Council had not gathered such power in centuries. It was meant to be a show of dominance, not a war. But as the fleets grew, fear replaced confidence. Deep inside, even the Council's admirals knew they were facing something unknown. Meanwhile, on Earth, the world celebrated its survival. The cities lit up with banners of blue and silver, the colors of the Earth Defense Fleet. People cheered in the streets. Children played games where they pretended to fly ships against alien invaders. For the first time in history, the nations of Earth were united not by fear but by pride. Humanity had stood together and survived. In the command center beneath the Pacific Federation complex, Commander Rana stood with her officers. The lights of holographic displays reflected on her calm face. Around her, engineers and strategists studied the battle data from the first encounter. The air was filled with the sound of quiet focus. We held them off, said Captain Lin, her second in command. But that was only their first fleet. The Council will return. They will not forgive this, Rana nodded. Then we must be ready. We have proven we can defend Earth. Now we must learn to protect the colonies. Our unity is our greatest weapon. Dr. Miles entered the room carrying a tablet filled with new research. Commander, our scientists have studied the wreckage of the Council ships we captured. Their power systems are advanced but not invincible. We can adapt some of their technology to strengthen our shields and engines. Rana looked at him with hope. Then we begin at once. Every hour counts. The next time they come, we will not just survive, we will win. Across the solar system, human effort reached a level never seen before. The shipyards above the moon worked day and night. Mars, once a distant dream, became a military base. Thousands of volunteers joined the fleet. Farmers, miners, engineers, and soldiers all shared the same purpose. They were not building for conquest. They were building for survival. On the moon, inside the command ship Aurora, Captain Mira led the training of new recruits. She had been one of the heroes of the first battle, known for her courage and calm leadership. Her ship had taken heavy damage but returned stronger. The crew respected her not just for her skill, but for her belief in what they were fighting for. During one briefing, she stood before her officers and pointed to a map of the galaxy. The Council believes we are weak because we are new to the stars. They measure power in numbers and size, but our strength is not in our ships. It is in how we fight. Every human on this planet knows what it means to struggle, to rebuild, to rise again after loss. That is something no machine or empire can understand. Her words spread through the fleet like a spark. Soldiers spoke of them in the mess halls. Pilots repeated them before training. For the first time, the humans felt not just united but unstoppable. They were ready to defend more than just Earth. They were ready to defend their right to exist as free beings in the galaxy. Weeks passed. Then came the first signs of the Council's return. Deep space sensors picked up faint signals at the edge of human space. The readings were massive. Dozens of ships, maybe hundreds, were on the move. The Council's second fleet was coming. The news reached Earth within hours. The celebration ended, replaced by silence. Every channel broadcast the same message from Commander Rana. The Council returns. They believe we will bow this time. They are wrong. Every ship, every pilot, every person must be ready. The fight for our world is not over. It has just begun. In the Council fleet, Admiral Verak sat aboard his new flagship, the Eternal Flame. His face was hardened, but pride filled his voice as he addressed his officers. We have gathered the greatest armada the galaxy has ever seen. The humans will see our power and surrender. If they resist, we will end them. The Council's rule will stand eternal. Captain Orla, still by his side, looked uneasy. Admiral, the reports from the first battle show that their tactics are unpredictable. They fight with instinct, not formation. Our computers cannot calculate their moves. Verak smiled coldly. Then we will use overwhelming force. No instinct can stand against a storm. As the Council fleet advanced through hyperspace, humanity prepared. Every outpost and station was armed. The fleet gathered near Jupiter, forming a defensive line. The Aurora led the formation, followed by new ships built from captured alien metal. Each carried a name that symbolized hope: valor, unity, freedom, resolve. On the day the Council fleet arrived, the sky above Jupiter shimmered with blue light as ships exited hyperspace. The humans waited silently. The radio channels filled with static as the two armadas faced each other across the void. Admiral Verak opened the channel first. "Humans of Earth," he said, his voice heavy with arrogance, "you have brought destruction upon yourselves. I offer one final chance. Lower your shields, surrender your weapons, and we may spare your world." Captain Mira responded. Her voice was calm, steady, and filled with conviction. "Admiral, you do not understand us. We do not fight because we seek power. We fight because we will never kneel. You will not find fear here, only resolve." The transmission ended. Both sides prepared for battle. The silence before the storm lasted only a moment. Then space erupted with fire. The Council's ships opened fire with plasma cannons, lighting up the darkness with burning light. Human ships responded with coordinated strikes using new railguns and energy torpedoes. Explosions filled the black sky, turning the space around Jupiter into a field of flame and metal. Inside the Aurora, alarms rang as Captain Mira gave orders. "Left flank, hold formation. Focus fire on their carriers. Keep moving, do not let them target our engines." The crew moved with perfect coordination. Every human ship worked together, covering the weaknesses of others. Where one fell, two more took its place. The Council's fleet was larger, but the humans fought smarter. They moved through asteroid fields and used gravity to slingshot their attacks. They turned every obstacle into an advantage. Admiral Verak watched in disbelief. "Their ships are everywhere. They move like they know our plans before we act." His tactical officer replied, "Admiral, their communications are silent. They are not using computer coordination. They are predicting us," Verak growled. "Impossible. No species can react this fast, but the humans could. They were not guided by programs or strict orders. They trusted instinct and teamwork born from centuries of conflict on their own world. Every captain made decisions on their own, guided by the same purpose: to protect humanity." Hours passed and the battle continued. The Council lost dozens of ships. The humans lost many too, but their spirits did not break. The damaged ships rammed into enemy vessels rather than surrender. Even as explosions tore across the battlefield, the human fleet held the line. On Earth, people watched the battle through transmissions sent by the fleet. Every heartbeat with pride and fear. Families gathered in silence, holding hands, praying for those fighting above. For the first time, all humanity felt as one. Back in the Council hall, Grand Speaker Theros watched the live feed with growing rage. How is this possible? How can they resist such power? He turned to Rathan. "You told me they were emotional, unstable. You said they would fall." Rathan's voice was quiet. "I said they were emotional, yes. But emotion gives them strength. They fight with passion, not logic. You cannot break a people who believe in something greater than themselves." Theros glared at him. "Then we will destroy them completely. No world, no colony, no human shall survive, but it was too late. The battle near Jupiter ended in disaster for the Council. The humans had driven them back again. The Eternal Flame was crippled, its engines destroyed by a coordinated strike from the Aurora and Valor. Admiral Verac barely escaped with a handful of ships. The stars over the Viral system burned red as the largest fleet in history gathered. Thousands of Council warships surrounded the system, their formation stretching across light years. Each ship carried the crest of the Galactic Council, shining proudly as if trying to remind the galaxy that their power was still unmatched. Yet behind that pride there was fear. Humanity's name had spread far beyond Earth. The words, "We stand free," had reached every corner of the galaxy. On many worlds, slaves had risen against their masters. On others, rulers had stepped down, fearing rebellion. The Council's authority was crumbling. And now, they had decided that the only way to restore control was to destroy the humans completely. Inside the flagship Eternal Flame, General Verac stood at the viewing deck. His expression was grim, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the vast field of ships. He had lost thousands of vessels in the last battle near the Sol system, but he refused to accept defeat. This time he had everything, more ships, more weapons, and new strategies. An officer approached him and said, "Scanners show no human activity in the system yet." "General, they will come," Verac replied coldly. "They cannot resist a challenge like this, and when they arrive, we will crush them once and for all." He clenched his fists behind his back. He knew that this battle would decide the fate of the galaxy. Far away, beyond the edge of Council space, the human fleet prepared for departure. In the command center of the Aurora Prime, Captain Mira stood before her officers. Around her, the room was filled with quiet energy. The crew knew what they were about to face. "This is not just about Earth anymore," Mira said, her voice calm but powerful. "This is about every world that believes in freedom. The Council thinks they can scare us into silence. Today we show them that humanity does not yield." Her first officer, Arun, nodded. "All fleets are ready, Captain. The Allies have joined. The Rin, the Drell, and the Ketha fleets are at our side. They follow our lead." Mira looked at the star map showing the Viral system. "Then we move together," she said. "No one fights alone. No one is left behind." Across the fleet, thousands of pilots and soldiers prepared themselves. Many were young, some barely old enough to remember the first Council invasion of Earth. Yet all of them carried the same fire inside, the unbreakable will of humanity. When the final command came, the engines of the human fleet roared to life. One by one, the ships vanished into hyperspace, heading toward Virel. Hours later, alarms echoed across the Council fleet as human ships began to emerge from hyperspace. At first, the Council scanners detected only a few dozen vessels. But then more appeared, hundreds at a time, until the space around the Viral star was filled with ships. The humans had come, not just from Earth, but from every world that had joined their cause. Their ships shone with blue energy, their engines glowing like fireflies in the dark. Captain Mira stood at the front of her bridge, eyes locked on the enemy formation. "So this is it," she said quietly. "The day that will be remembered across the stars." Aaron looked at her. "Their fleet is massive. More than 20,000 ships. We are outnumbered 3-1. Mira's lips curved slightly. "Then we will have to be 3 times as brave." She turned to her crew. "Send the message across all channels. Every ally, every ship, let them hear it." A signal flashed across space, reaching every corner of the battlefield. Mira's voice echoed in every ship, human and alien alike. "To all who fight beside us, this is not a battle for conquest. This is a battle for freedom. The Council has ruled through fear for too long. Today we fight not to destroy, but to build a new beginning. Stand firm. Stand free." Cheers filled the communication lines. And then, as the Council fleet began to move, the final war for the galaxy began. The first exchange of fire turned space into a storm of light. Beams of plasma and energy tore through the darkness. The Council ships advanced in massive blocks, relying on sheer numbers. But the human and allied fleets moved like water, flowing around their formation, striking and retreating. On the Aurora Prime, Mira watched the battle unfold. "Target their command carriers," she ordered. "Cut their control grid." Fighter wings moved ahead, weaving between heavy fire. They struck at weak points, disabling communications and engines. For every human ship destroyed, 2 Council ships followed. The difference was not in strength, but in strategy. General Varric barked orders from his flagship, furious at the growing chaos. "They are using outdated tactics," he shouted. "Press forward. Overwhelm them," but his officers looked uneasy. "Sir, they are not retreating. They are leading us into the asteroid field near Virel's second moon." Before Varric could respond, the human fleet vanished behind the asteroids. The council ships followed, unaware that they were flying into a trap. Hidden within the dense asteroid field were hundreds of human drones equipped with stealth fields and explosive charges. As the council ships entered, the drones activated. The field erupted in blinding flashes as asteroids exploded, tearing through the enemy ranks. Varric's ship shook violently. "What is happening?" he roared. "Ambush, General! We are losing control of the left flank." Mira's voice came through the static on open comms. "You should have learned, General. Humans never fight the same battle twice." As the chaos spread, the Allied fleet struck from the sides. The Rin ships, fast and agile, hit the Council's engines. The Drell fired their heavy cannons, breaking through the main defense lines. The Ketha, who had once been slaves under the Council, rammed their ships into enemy cruisers, refusing to back down. Everywhere. The cry echoed through space, "We stand free." The Council fleet began to crumble. Commanders abandoned their posts. Ships broke formation, trying to escape the killing zone. General Varric watched in disbelief as his mighty armada fell apart. He slammed his fists on the console. "No, we are the Council. We cannot lose to these primitives." But deep down he knew the truth. The humans were not just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for everyone who had ever been oppressed by the Council. On the Aurora Prime, Mira received the report. "Council ships are retreating, Captain. Their command network is failing." "Then we push," she said, "but no unnecessary destruction. We show them who we are." The human fleet advanced, surrounding the remaining Council ships. One by one, the enemy vessels surrendered. Even Varric's flagship was caught in a gravity net. When the battle finally ended, silence filled the system. The once mighty Council fleet floated broken among the stars. Hours later, Mira and a team of representatives from the Allied world stood aboard a neutral station orbiting Virel. They had gathered to sign the first agreement of the new Galactic Order. Ambassador Rethan, who had secretly contacted the humans weeks earlier, stood beside Mira. He looked tired, but his eyes carried hope. "I never thought I would live to see this day," he said. Mira smiled slightly. "Neither did we. But this is not our victory alone. Every world that stood up made this possible." Rethan nodded. "The Council is finished. What happens now?" Mira looked at the gathering of leaders. "We build something better. No more rule by fear. No more forced obedience. Every species will have a voice. We will call it the Galactic Alliance." The hall filled with quiet agreement. The old Council banners were lowered. New symbols of unity were raised in their place. Across the galaxy, people celebrated. Not just humans, but all who had been under the Council's control. Back on Earth, the skies were filled with light as ships returned home. The people stood together, watching the stars with pride. Humanity had not only defended its home, but had changed the fate of the galaxy. In the command center of the Earth Alliance, Captain Mira stood before a window, looking at the blue planet below. Harun walked up beside her. "It's strange," he said. "After all that fighting, it feels quiet now." Mira nodded. "Peace always feels strange after war, but it's what we fought for." Harun smiled. "Do you think the galaxy will remember this day?" Mira turned to look at him. "Yes, they will remember not the battle, but the choice we made. We showed them that humanity doesn't seek power. We seek freedom for all." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the sun rise over Earth. The light of a new day spread across the planet, reflecting off the ships in orbit. Across distant worlds, the message spread again just as it had before. It was broadcast on every channel and every language for every species to hear. "We stand free." Those words became the heart of the new galaxy. No longer were they just a declaration of defiance, they were a promise. A promise that freedom would never again belong to one world, but to all who had the courage to defend it. And so the galaxy changed forever. The council that once ruled by fear was gone, replaced by an alliance born of hope, and at the center of it all stood humanity, the species that refused to kneel, the people who showed the stars what it meant to be free. The halls of the Galactic Council were filled with confusion. Every species that had joined the council in the past had done so peacefully. They had always believed that resistance against the council was impossible. Yet humanity had changed that belief. Reports kept arriving from distant systems. The council fleets that had survived the battle over Earth were in disarray. Commanders spoke of human ships that appeared and vanished within seconds, striking and disappearing before counterattack. Others claimed that humans had allies now, species who had once been ruled by the council but were now fighting beside them. Inside the council chamber, the air was thick with fear and pride mixed together. The grand hall was circular, with hundreds of alien delegates sitting behind glowing panels that showed their symbols. At the center stood Ambassador Rathan, his tall frame shaking as he tried to speak over the noise. "Silence," he shouted, his voice echoing across the room. "We must act with reason. If we move too quickly, we will lose more than our fleets. We could lose our rule," the delegates argued. Some shouted that humanity must be crushed before its rebellion spread. Others warned that attacking again would only make things worse. Rathan knew that both were right. Humans were dangerous not because of their numbers but because of their determination. He remembered the message that Earth had sent after the first battle. It had been broadcast across the galaxy, clear and direct. "We stand free." Those words had been simple, but they had shaken the Council's power like nothing before. Now dozens of enslaved planets had begun to rise. On worlds where the Council once ruled with an iron hand, banners of freedom were appearing. In the distant Drell system, miners refused to work. On the cold moon of Theron, factories had stopped production. Everywhere, the name human was whispered with hope. Meanwhile, far from the Council's capital, in a quiet sector near the border of human-controlled space, the Earth fleet was gathering. The humans had not celebrated their victory over the Council's first fleet. Instead, they had worked harder than ever. Shipyards across the moon, Mars, and the orbit of Jupiter were busy night and day. Inside one of the new command ships, the Aurora Prime, Captain Mira stood before a large display showing the growing map of human influence. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed determination. Around her, officers moved quickly, analyzing data and reports. "Status of the fleet?" she asked. 75% ready, Captain," replied her first officer, a man named Aaron. "New ships are joining from Mars shipyards. The new energy shields are fully tested. Engines are stable." Mira nodded. "Good. The Council will not wait long. We must be ready to protect those who believe in freedom." Aaron looked at the screen that showed several alien species who had begun communication with Earth. "These new allies," he said, "they believe we can save them. But if the Council sends its grand fleet, it will be a war like nothing before." Mira looked at him and said softly, "Then we will show them what humanity stands for. Not for conquest, but for courage." Back in the Council chamber, a new plan was forming. General Varric, the commander of the Council's military forces, rose from his seat. He was known for his pride and his victories. His voice was cold and strong as he addressed the assembly. "Enough talk of peace," he said. "We are the Council. We rule by strength. If we show weakness now, we lose everything. Humanity must be taught a lesson they will never forget." The hall erupted in support from the military delegates. Rathan tried to speak, but his words were drowned by the cheers. General Varric continued, "I will gather the largest fleet the galaxy has ever seen, 10 times the size of the one that fell. We will burn their ships and take their world. This rebellion will end." Rathan finally stood and shouted, "And what if you fail again? What if your largest fleet meets the same fate? Do you not see that humans fight not just with weapons but with spirit?" Varric glared at him. "Spirit cannot stop a plasma barrage. You think too much, Ambassador. Leave the fighting to those who know how to win." The chamber fell silent. Rathan realized that his words meant nothing now. The Council had chosen pride over caution. Weeks later, across the galaxy, the largest armada ever assembled began to move. Thousands of warships, cruisers, and dreadnoughts jumped through hyperspace toward the Sol system. Every ship carried the mark of the Council, and every commander carried orders to destroy the humans completely. But when they reached the outer edge of the Sol system, what they saw was not what they expected. Instead of a single fleet guarding Earth, there were dozens of human ships spread across space in precise formations. New ships, larger and more advanced than any seen before, glowed with blue energy. The humans had not been idle. They had prepared. The lead Council ship broadcast a message. "To the species known as humans, you have one last chance to surrender. Lay down your weapons and accept council rule or face destruction. The reply came moments later, clear and calm, spoken by Captain Mira herself. We do not surrender. You may come, but you will not return. Her words spread through the communication lines, reaching not only human ships but also the council fleet. For the first time, some of the alien soldiers began to doubt their mission. They had seen the reports of what happened to the last fleet. The battle did not start immediately. For hours, both sides watched each other. The stars between them were silent. Captain Mira walked across her bridge, studying the council formation. Her officers waited for her command. Hold fire, she said. Let them make the first move. General Varric on the other side grew impatient. They are stalling, he shouted. Prepare all cannons. Target their flagship. His officers hesitated. Sir, sensors show unusual readings from their ships. Their shields are beyond what we have seen before. Do it, Varric roared. No machine built by humans can stop the council. Moments later, space exploded with light as the first plasma fire crossed the void. The human fleet moved instantly, breaking formation, not in panic but in perfect coordination. The battle had begun. Human ships darted between the council lines with stunning speed. Their smaller fighters weaved through enemy fire, striking weak points that the council's computers failed to protect. The Aurora Prime led the center charge, firing energy beams that tore through dreadnought shields. On board her ship, Mira remained calm. Focus on their command carriers, she ordered. Cut off their control. Aaron reported enemy fleet is splitting. Their formation is breaking. Good, she said. Keep pressure. Don't chase. Let them come to us. The humans used every bit of knowledge learned from centuries of warfare. Their ships moved like one mind, using gravity slings and starfield shadows to outmaneuver their enemy. Council ships built for domination had never faced such flexible tactics. Hours passed. The battle stretched across light years. Explosions painted the darkness. And slowly the council fleet began to fall apart. General Varric shouted orders that no one could follow. His communications were jammed, his ships scattered. He realized too late that the humans had lured them into a trap. A sudden alert filled his bridge. Human ships were appearing behind him. They had used the system's gravity to slingshot around the sun and strike from the rear. Impossible, he whispered. Captain Mira's voice came through every council channel. This ends here. Surrender and live. Continue and be destroyed. The council fleet began to retreat, but it was too late. Human ships surrounded them from all sides. One by one, alien commanders chose to surrender rather than die in vain. When the last of the enemy ships vanished from sensors, Mira stood quietly at the center of her bridge. Her crew cheered, but she did not smile. She looked at the screen showing distant stars and said softly, "We have won this battle, but the war is not over. We must bring peace to the galaxy, not rule it." Orin turned to her. "Do you think they will listen now?" Mira looked at him with calm determination. "Maybe not today, but they will see that humans fight not for power but for freedom." Far away, in the council's capital, Ambassador Rethan watched the reports in silence. The Grand Fleet was gone. Entire sectors were rebelling. The council's control was falling apart. He stood by the great window, looking at the stars. "They expected humans to submit," he said quietly. "But humanity has done what no one else dared. They have reminded us all that freedom cannot be taken, it must be chosen." The council halls, once filled with pride and arrogance, now echoed with silence and fear. Across the galaxy, a new dawn had begun. And in that dawn, the words of humanity still rang clear. We stand free.